Not every relationship can or should survive cheating. Sometimes the betrayal is just too severe. Sometimes the person who cheated simply isn't willing to do the work necessary to actually repair things. And sometimes, even if they are, the partner who was betrayed says, I just can't do this. And that decision is completely understandable. But if you're asking, can a relationship survive and heal from cheating? The answer is yes. And I know that because I've unfortunately experienced it. 7 years ago, I cheated on my wife. That's not something I ever wanted anyone to know, but it's the truth. And my wife would agree, because of the work we've both done healing from that, our marriage is better now than it's ever been before. And so if I can somehow use what I've learned and use our story to help other people heal, then it's worth any embarrassment or shame that I might feel talking about it. And if you're the partner who was betrayed, I hope you know I don't expect you to listen to someone like me after what you've gone through. I'm not expecting any grace from me. I'm simply here to help your partner understand your pain and get the proper tools to actually heal this relationship if they're willing to put in that work. That's what this video is all about. And if you're here and you betrayed your partner and you actually want to heal and repair and rebuild trust, I need you to realize that you get one shot at this. And most people don't even get that. So you need to take notes. You need to watch this a couple times. You need to realize just how serious this is. Because healing can only happen when the truth comes fully into the light and the damage is actually understood and validated, when the person who did the betrayal becomes consistently accountable and the remorse is evident through changed behavior, and the betrayed partner is allowed to fully grieve and express their hurt and feel seen and heard and understood. And then the two of you can slowly build something safer and more honest than what existed before. That's what I'm going to try my best to teach you how to do today. And from what I've seen, there's two things that will completely block healing right off the bat. Number one, the betrayer is stuck in their shame. I'm the worst. I'm such a piece of crap. I'm worthless. The problem is that on the surface, that almost looks like you're taking accountability, but you're not. It's still me-focused. It's still self-centered. The focus isn't on their pain. It's on your discomfort around the pain you caused them. There's a big difference there. The second way we block healing is on the other end of the spectrum, where we not only ignore and dismiss their pain, but we actually blame them or the relationship for the reason why we cheated. We dismiss what happened, or we make excuses like, well, you were never affectionate. I was really lonely. Or we say terribly stupid, hurtful things like it didn't mean anything. It was just sex. But think of how self-centered and hurtful and oblivious that statement is. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything to who? It certainly meant something to your partner. And what do you mean it was just sex? How self-centered and immature to downplay something as just sex. Almost like you could have taken it or left it, right? The very thing that has the potential to completely destroy your relationship. And if you have children together, completely fracture your ability to come home and play with your kids and tuck them in every night. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't that important. It was just sex. Healing can't even begin until we grow up and stop acting like immature children who only think about themselves. And we have to realize our actions have consequences. They impact other people. The world doesn't revolve around us. And at the heart of it, cheating is self-centered. I wanted something, so I took it. Is it more complex than that? Of course it is. There's a ton of factors that go into why people step out in their relationship, and we'll go into those. And it's still true that cheating is a choice. No one made you do it. No one forced you to cheat. Ultimately, we did it because we wanted to feel something or experience something, and we need to own that choice. Your partner might have been the cause of some of the relationship issues, but they were not the cause of your cheating. And no one is owed a second chance after cheating. I was given a second chance, and I made the most of it by initiating counseling and reading books and learning everything I could about why this happened and how to heal and rebuild trust. And I'm going to tell you everything I know, but even doing all that, I did not deserve a second chance. Sometimes the betrayal is just too severe and the hurt is just too deep, and the person who was betrayed should never feel guilty for not wanting to continue a relationship where that has occurred. Truly understanding just how much pain we cause someone else by betraying them means saying, I'm going to put in the work to self-reflect and take accountability and understand your pain and heal. And it makes sense if you can't continue because of the pain my actions caused. That's the beginning of actually getting it. The other thing I need to mention is if you're the betrayed partner, you don't need to decide if you're going to stay in this relationship forever right now. Don't let someone pressure you into that decision. Given what you've been through, it's perfectly fine for you to say, hey, I'm willing to give healing a shot, but I don't know if I'm going to stay in this relationship forever. And if someone tells you that that's not fair and you're not committed to this relationship, you need to remind them that they stepped out of this relationship to be with someone else. That was the broken commitment. That was the betrayal. That was them not being fair to you and putting you through something that you weren't supposed to go through. Don't ever let someone use their betrayal as a way to explain why they're now the victim. Some people only put in the work of healing because their partner agrees to stay with them, but they actually have it backwards. They don't need to change for you. They need to change for them. They need to change because they realize they messed up. They weren't acting from their own values and morals. They weren't acting as who they want to be and who they want to show up as in this relationship. That's why they need to change for them, because they want to self-reflect and grow and mature. Because anytime someone changes for you, there's a good chance that that change isn't going to stick, right? And most of this message will be about what partners who have betrayed can do to rebuild trust and heal the damage that they've caused. But this message is also for the person who was betrayed to actually understand what they deserve in the healing process. If you have a partner who you're giving a chance to heal the betrayal that they caused and they don't want to put in the effort, they just want to sweep it under the rug, or they said that they were sorry, so they're done validating your pain when you get triggered a week later. I just need you to know you're not going to heal in that environment. Sometimes people stay after being betrayed because they simply don't know how valuable they are. They don't know what they deserve in a relationship, and especially in the case like this, they don't know what they deserve when it comes to true repair and healing from a betrayal like this. So I'm begging you, if someone isn't willing to put in the work that I'm going to describe in the rest of this video, do not stay with them. It's not worth it. They're not going to change. They're not eventually going to come around. They are self-centered or narcissistic, and you have to find the courage to step away from people who have no interest in repairing the damage that they've caused. You will never feel fulfilled or loved in a relationship with someone who refuses to take accountability or care about the way that their words or actions impacted you. And sometimes the most courageous and healthiest thing that you can do after being betrayed is walk away. Leaving does not mean failure. It means you did everything you could, and they weren't willing to be a safe place even after so much hurt that they caused. Now, having said all that, is healing possible if you have two people who genuinely want to repair this betrayal and not just survive it, but actually use it as a catalyst for a deeper growth and a deeper bond and connection with each other? And the answer is absolutely yes. But it's not quick, it's not easy, and it takes work from both people. Okay, so let's start with discovery day. However the cheating is discovered, it's traumatizing for the person discovering it. Regardless of whether they caught you in the act or they found a text message that confirmed months of suspicion that you might have been previously gaslighting them about, or you chose to disclose it to them, either way, it's all traumatic. Betrayal trauma is completely destabilizing. You become numb. You question your worth and value. You exist in this fog. You have intrusive thoughts. Your mind replays imagined scenes from their affair on a loop. You're hypervigilant, right? You're suddenly checking their phone or looking out for the next threat because your nervous system is constantly in fight or flight now. You can't sleep. You can't eat. You ask the same questions over and over again because your brain is simply trying to make sense of it all. You might experience emotional flooding, a wave of rage or grief that comes from seemingly out of nowhere. And underneath it all, one of the hardest aspects to manage is the collapse in self-trust. How did I not see this? Can I even trust my own judgment? What's wrong with me that they did this to me? How can I ever trust this person again? Even if I want to. What if they hurt me again? For so many people who experience being betrayed, they say what hurts isn't just the physical aspect, it's the deception. You looked me in the eyes and let me live in a reality that was a lie. You said you loved me and then you went to see them. You let me trust you when you were hiding things from me. And now they question everything, rightfully so. Even happy memories from the past are tainted now because they wonder, were you lying to me then too? Was any of this real? How long have I lived in a reality that was a lie? That's what betrayal does to a person. It completely shatters their perception of reality. And that's really hard to heal from. And it's important to remember during all this that healing isn't going to be linear. It's messy. It ebbs and flows. It comes in waves. One minute they desperately want to feel close to you. The other minute they're pushing you away. Why? because their body is simply reacting to a collapse in safety and trust, and treating that like an overreaction will only do more damage. And I don't say all this to kick you when you're down. I say this because it's necessary to understand just how badly we've hurt them. This is the beginning of the work of the betrayer to get it, to understand, and begin to empathize with how catastrophic this feels for their partner. This step can't be skipped. Next, the affair has to end completely. Not halfway, not mostly, not, well, we work together, so we have to communicate occasionally, but we'll just talk about work. No, if you're serious about repair and healing, contact has to be stopped. If you work together, you need to find a new job. Or maybe you need to find a new marriage. Which one is more important to you? Because we're at that stage. And I know what some of you are thinking. I don't know, Jimmy, finding a new job would be really inconvenient. I mean, I worked really hard to get where I am right now. Yeah, healing from betrayal is really inconvenient. You set an explosion off in this relationship, and now you're like, boy, it's really difficult to get all these pieces back together. Yeah, sometimes when you ask questions like that, I wonder if you truly understand what's going to be necessary for you to heal this. If your affair partner still has access to you, your partner isn't going to feel safe. Plain and simple. You can't rebuild trust while your behavior is still breaking it, and you can't expect your partner to heal from a wound that you continue to keep open. And I completely understand that in all these scenarios, there might be an emotional involvement, like a deep emotional involvement. That was me. I had drifted so far apart from my wife. We were living separate lives, and I felt like roommates for so long that I was in a full-blown romantic relationship with someone else for months until I told my wife I want a divorce. And the truth is, I had deluded myself and told myself all sort of stories that made her the villain and make it easier to compartmentalize the shame that I was dealing with regarding cheating. I actually thought she would be relieved when I asked her to end things, because I had convinced myself she couldn't stand me. But she was heartbroken. She was devastated. And if I was willing to get help, she was willing to give me a chance to rebuild trust. So I'm not saying any of this is easy. I'm saying you have a choice and you have to choose. Do you want to stay in this relationship and put in the work, or do you want to go? No one is forcing you to stay. So the only reason that you should stay is because you're willing to put in the hard work to rebuild trust. The only thing you can't do is have it both ways. It will hurt your partner even worse if you continue talking to someone else and just get better at keeping it a secret. There's no reason to hurt someone like that. I'm just warning you, you only get one shot at this. You can't have it both ways. You can choose right now. You can leave the relationship and go be with whoever you want, or you can stay and cut off contact. I have no problem with you sending them a closure message that your partner can see that says, I've confessed to my partner about what happened and I've made a decision to stay. Please do not contact me anymore. No, I wish you the best. No, I'm sorry for getting you involved. I'm so sorry for hurting you. None of that. We chose them over our current partner for long enough. If we're choosing to stay in this relationship, we have to start thinking about our partner first. It's time we become the person that we truly want to be. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is looking, right? It's time we end it completely and block them on all socials and make that decision final. Now, will that be difficult for some of you? Of course it will. And you know it's the right thing to do. And the only way we heal is by doing the next right thing. So the next right thing that you have to do is tell the whole truth. This is where some people mess up because they confess, but not fully. They don't want to hurt their partner's feelings, or they're afraid that if they told them the whole truth, that their partner would leave, so they withhold. But as their partner finds out pieces of information over time, sometimes because the previous things you said get contradicted, or they simply find new evidence, that becomes a new betrayal. Not because every detail is always worse, but because your partner thinks justifiably, I'm still being lied to. And when that happens, healing starts back at day one again. One complete confession is devastating, but 20 partial confessions is torture. For someone who was betrayed, they can't heal from a story that keeps changing. They need to know the truth so they can eventually feel stable. Because every time they find out something, instead of you voluntarily disclosing it, the message that they get is this person cares more about their image than they do my pain. And I can't actually trust them. Now, does that mean you should share every graphic detail about what happened with them? No, because sometimes that makes things worse. Sometimes a betrayed person wants to know every detail because they think it will help them to feel better, but that's not always the case. There are some images you won't be able to get out of your head, and it will drive you insane knowing certain details. So we have to be careful here. People who were betrayed are obsessively thinking and ruminating because they're desperate for clarity and safety right now. And there's a healthy way to talk about this and process this information about the betrayal without re-traumatizing them. And a counselor is your best bet here. But as the person who did the betrayal, we need to do everything we can to help them feel safe and volunteer our passwords and willingly give access to our phone or work communications or whatever areas they need to feel a little bit more safe. Transparency after betrayal is not them being controlling. It's you fully understanding that it makes sense that they need this reassurance for a time in order to partially stabilize a terribly unstable situation. It's communicating to them, I recognize that I used secrecy to harm you, so now I am willingly removing secrecy to help you heal. The goal is to use transparency as a bridge back to trust. It doesn't need to be forever, but when a person betrays someone and is unwilling to give full access and continues to hide things and acts offended when their partner needs transparency, they don't actually love that person and they're not interested in doing everything they can to heal this. The only way we begin to heal and rebuild trust is if we actually move towards taking full accountability, because guilt just wants relief. But accountability accepts responsibility. Guilt wants the discomfort to stop. Accountability understands that the pain is simply a consequence of our choices. And sometimes as betrayers, we have this moment where after disclosure, we profusely apologize, we cry, we feel so much shame, we promise we'll never do something like that again. But then a month goes by, a week goes by, and our partner gets triggered and brings it up again, and we get defensive. I said I was sorry. What more do you want me to do? I deleted their number. Are you going to hold this over my head forever? And that's why I'm telling you now. You have to understand the damage that was caused to your partner and this relationship. There is simply no room for shame. There is no room for defensiveness, dismissiveness, invalidating their pain. There's no room for any of it. We have to find a new path because any single one of those is only going to destroy the relationship worse. Now, I'm certainly not saying that I want them to hold this over your head forever. We're going to talk about that later, but this isn't forever. This is a fresh wound, and healing from betrayal, especially cheating, is a long process. So get used to long. You don't get to create a wound and then blame your partner for bleeding. It doesn't work that way. Actually taking accountability means owning it, not making excuses like, well, yeah, I hurt you, but I was hurting too. Not counter-blaming. Yeah, what I did was wrong, but I mean, you messed up too. No, we take full responsibility for our actions. What I did was wrong. You never deserved to be betrayed. I can't imagine how badly I've hurt you. And it makes sense that you're devastated. It makes sense how much you're struggling right now with whether to stay or go. I can't imagine how confusing and destabilizing all this is. Taking accountability isn't the finish line. It's the starting line. It's from this place that the real work begins. Healing starts when your partner doesn't have to convince you of how much you hurt them. Healing begins when we are truly remorseful about our behavior. We're convicted, not from a place of shame. I'm the worst. I hate myself. Because that energy is inviting someone to comfort you or feel bad for you. Instead, we're truly remorseful and repentant because we know that that's not the person that we want to be. And then we take intentional steps to become that person. Because shame paralyzes and prevents growth and maturity, because shame says you're a worthless piece of crap, so why would you try? Shame prevents us from hearing their pain because we interpret it as an attack and we shut down or we explode back on them. But healthy remorse can listen to their pain and hold space. We can say, I hate what I did, and I'm committed to healing this by listening and understanding your pain. And the way we do that is by becoming an emotionally safe partner, potentially for the first time. For a lot of you, you didn't learn the skills of emotional safety, but from now on, that's your entire goal. You need to wake up and think, how can I be an emotionally safe partner today? So when they randomly say, I feel like our entire relationship was a lie, you don't argue, you don't get defensive. You get curious about the pain underneath that statement for them. Everything they say has a purpose. They are looking to see if it's safe to be honest and vulnerable about their pain or their anger or their needs right now. Everything they say has multiple layers of importance. And eventually, sure, I don't want them to communicate with criticism or absolutes, but after a huge betrayal, there has to be room for that. I'm not saying violence should be present, but they have a right to be furious, and they're going to lose their temper from time to time because their body is screaming, I don't know if it's actually safe, and I'm scared. So a better response sounds like, I can understand why it feels like that. I lied to you. I hid things from you. I made you question what was real. I hate that my choices did that to you. And I want to understand more about how you're feeling, if you feel safe to share. That's holding space. You have to become an expert listener and validator and empathizer. And for most of you, you didn't learn those skills. And so once again, this is not from a place of shame. When they bring something up, you don't say, yep, you're right. I'm just a piece of crap. It's not that. It's tell me more because I'm listening. The goal is always curiosity and meeting them where they're at. What's underneath the complaint? What's the pain underneath the anger? What unmet need are they trying to communicate? You need to meet everything with curiosity and validation about what they're actually feeling. Always get down to the root feelings. I feel like you don't care isn't a feeling. So try to get them down to the root feeling and then validate where they're at. Help me understand is your new motto. If they say, I don't even know who you are anymore, don't say, that's crazy. We've been together for 6 years before I cheated. Instead, say, that makes sense. I hid a part of my life from you. And now you're trying to figure out what's real. I'm so sorry. Tell me about how that's affecting you right now. We all understand that injuries take time to heal. Betrayal trauma is an attachment injury. It's a trust injury. It's a reality injury. And you have to learn to respond to that injury with patience. You need to get really good at staying calm and not getting defensive and instead get curious and empathetic. What do you need me to understand right now? How can I show up for you in this moment? Remember, trust is rebuilt slowly, over 100 moments where they actually felt safe enough to be vulnerable and honest about their deep pain and sadness and anger and see that you're not going to punish them for it. And even more so, you need to intentionally initiate conversations about how they're feeling and coping today and this week and this month. You need to be proactive. And I get it, a lot of you won't want to do that because they seem happy today and you won't want to ruin it by bringing it up. But if you only wait to bring it up and talk about these things when they do, that doesn't show them that you're intentionally being proactive about healing. It looks like you just wish the problem would go away. Intentional check-ins are going to be the biggest trust builder. You starting those conversations shows them that you care more about their pain than you do your own discomfort. You care about rebuilding something with them more than your own ego. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about reminding them, I want to be a safe place for you to share anything that's on your heart. Another part of being proactive is you need to go get tested for STDs and bring back the results. Don't wait for them to ask. Take responsibility. If there was any pornography involved, secret accounts, emotional affairs, dating apps, strip clubs, whatever the part of the betrayal was, you need to show them that you've deleted it and you're building a new plan so that it never happens again. The goal is no more secrets. We shouldn't be asking ourselves, what's the bare minimum that I can do so they don't leave? Or how can we talk about this stuff less? What we should be asking is, what does love require of me during all this? Because love requires honesty and accountability and humility and sacrifice. It requires emotional presence. The secrecy has to die. The entitlement has to die. The defensiveness has to die. The conflict avoidance has to die. The need for validation has to die. This mindset of I deserved this because I was unhappy in my relationship has to die. That part of you that could compartmentalize and lie and hide and then come home and act like nothing happened has to die. You can't keep being that same person and expect a healed relationship. You need to do whatever it takes to not revert back to old patterns. That's going to mean counseling. That's going to mean reading books, watching videos like these. You're going to have to get some help, right? You have to find someone that's going to help you self-reflect and get honest with yourself. Why did you cheat in the first place? It's an essential question to ask if we're going to prevent it from happening again. You can't just tell them, I'll never do it again. Why? Why won't you ever do it again? First of all, your words are worthless at this point. Second of all, you probably didn't think that you were going to cheat in the first place, did you? I mean, I surely didn't. I had never cheated before in any of my other relationships. So why did I cheat now? And I'm certainly not making any justifications, but for the sake of understanding ourselves better, I think people cheat for a couple different reasons. One, they like the feeling of outside validation. Their relationship is fine. It's safe. It's consistent. They love their partner. They don't fight all the time. It's relatively stable. But they love that feeling of flirting and getting validation from someone else. It feels adventurous and dangerous. And when they're presented with an opportunity to take it further, they aren't thinking about how much this would hurt their partner. They're just thinking about how good this feels. And these are the people who, when you ask them, why did you cheat? They're like, I don't know. Because they don't really understand why they did what they did. But you need to. Temptation is going to come up, but you need to have a plan ahead of time. So how we're going to deal with that? You need to remind yourselves that your family is more important than instant gratification or validation. We need to be honest with ourselves. Is there anything missing in your relationship that we can have a conversation about instead of doing something stupid like flirting with someone else? And the second reason I think people cheat is because you felt alone in your relationship for a really long time, didn't you? Maybe you even tried to suggest counseling. You tried to initiate conversations about how to make things better. But your partner was like, I don't see anything wrong with the relationship. And after enough of this cycle of silently suffering or having unproductive conflicts, having your needs invalidated, right, over and over again, you slowly begin to grieve the relationship even while you're still in it. And eventually someone comes along and they're like, I like talking to you. I like showing you attention. I see your value. I like communicating with you. I feel like we have a depth to our conversation. I feel like we connect together. And you forgot how good that feels. And I just need to be clear, just because you felt lonely in your relationship doesn't justify cheating. I'm in no way trying to paint that person in the second scenario as some sort of victim. They aren't. They could have done countless other things besides cheat. I could have divorced my wife and then slept with whoever I wanted to, but I didn't. But the only reason I'm mentioning these things is because we need to fully understand why this happened. We can be honest about our relationship needs not being met and also not use that as an excuse of why we cheated. But I still think it's essential that we get to the root cause of why the cheating occurred, because it almost always means that we have some inner work to do. But sometimes it means that we also need to get clear on whether or not our relationship has some work to do in the future. And so after a time, not right away, not in the first 6 months, because that time needs to be solely focused on the betrayed partner's pain and showing up for them and being a consistently safe presence and validating their hurt and rebuilding trust slowly. But eventually, we have to look at their relationship as a whole and ask, was this mutually fulfilling for both of us? We both need to eventually ask each other, was there emotional disconnection, conflict avoidance? Did you feel safe to be vulnerable and honest with me about your feelings and needs and desires? Was there pain suppressed? Did you feel appreciated? Did you feel valued? Was there resentment building? All of these questions need to be explored and worked through, and that takes work from both partners, because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to go back to the old relationship. That relationship is dead. We don't want that relationship anymore. We need to co-create a new relationship together. Because the only way this works long-term is if we get to the bottom of what wasn't working before. For some of you, the relationship was fine. You have inner work to do around getting bored or looking for validation in other places or flirting or sabotaging things through weak boundaries. That's your work to do. You need to get help so those patterns don't continue. Either way, that old relationship is gone, and we are building a new relationship together. One where we feel like a team. One where there's mutual respect and a foundation of emotional connection and honesty and transparency, where we can talk about anything and actually listen to each other. If it's important to them, it's important to me. That's what we need to be building together from now on. We're not giving each other our leftovers anymore because we realize how important this relationship is. We're intentional, we're proactive, we're looking out for ways to appreciate each other, to fill each other's love tanks, to serve each other, because we realize you're either drifting together or you're drifting apart, and you don't drift together by accident. It all depends on whether you're both putting in effort. We don't avoid conflicts like we used to because we realize that it only leads to worse disconnection in the relationship. And not cheating isn't the goal. The goal is loving each other. So let's get crystal clear on what that looks like for both of us. Let's lay it out on the table. And once again, this isn't done in the initial stages of healing when things are raw. This is done months and months later with a counselor, after the betrayed person starts to feel more stable and safe, and that we can start talking about how to build a new foundation of safety and trust and intimacy together from now on. And speaking of intimacy, I haven't touched on this yet, but during those first few months when things are really painful and really raw, we have to be really careful with sexual intimacy. We need to initiate conversations that remind our partner that safety is the goal. You need to say, I need you to know that I don't expect that to be a part of our relationship for a really long time. I betrayed your trust and I'm committed to rebuilding it, and I need you to take things as slow as you need to and know that I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be here. You need to really prioritize their safety. For the partner who was betrayed, there's so many complicated views around sex again. Sometimes they feel pressured to do it because they're afraid that without it, you're going to cheat again or leave. Sometimes they feel repulsed by it. Sometimes they feel like they need it to feel close to you again. Sometimes they feel so insecure around it, they can't stop thinking about what happened with the person that you cheated with. They can't stop comparing themselves to them. There can be so much fear and pain around this subject. Either way, your job is to remove pressure, remove any guilt, validate how complicated this is, empathize with them, wrestling with multiple different fears or needs, and just be a safe place for them to share about those things. Focus more on non-sexual affection in this season. Focus on deep conversations and feeling close to them through that. Focus more on whatever they're comfortable with in that moment. Remind them over and over again, your body is my cue. Let's just do whatever your body is telling you feels safe. I don't ever want to go against your body out of fear. They need to hear that from you. Always err on the side of going slow. That's way better than not having these conversations and then your partner doing something sexually that they weren't actually comfortable with and feeling like that was a mistake. That's only going to lead away from healing, not towards it. All right, that brings us to forgiveness, because that's always a conversation that often gets brought up. When are they going to forgive me, or when should I forgive them? So let's talk about it. First off, we need to differentiate between forgiveness and reconciliation, because those are very different. As I've hopefully already established, reconciliation is not owed and forgiveness cannot be demanded. You can choose to give reconciliation a chance without actually forgiving them yet, and you can forgive them and refuse to reconcile. Both are appropriate. I never demanded forgiveness from my wife. I just did everything I possibly could to create an environment where I fully understood the gravity of my actions and the pain that they caused, and consistently repented for the choices that I made, and did everything that we've talked about to repair and rebuild trust over time. And she made a decision to forgive me. But I need to be clear, forgiveness doesn't remove the consequences of my betrayal. And it doesn't mean that the work of repair is ended. She would still get triggered. Healing was still messy. Forgiveness didn't change any of that. It wasn't the end of accountability. Forgiveness happens when the person who was betrayed makes a choice to cancel the debt that you owe them for your betrayal. Forgiveness says, I'm not going to hold this over your head. I'm not going to let this define us forever. And I'm not going to let resentment from the betrayal have a hold over my heart. I'm choosing forgiveness instead. Now, reconciliation, on the other hand, is also a choice, but it's based on whether or not they are actually putting in the work. You should not reconcile with someone who has betrayed you if they're not actually changing the patterns and fully understanding your pain and all the things that we've already talked about. Reconciliation is a choice, but it's based on those patterns. Forgiveness doesn't really require anything from them. It's a choice that I'm making regardless of whether we reconcile or not. All right, that brings me to one of my final points. There's going to be a small portion of you who cheated, and your partner doesn't have an interest in working towards forgiveness, even though you're doing everything possible to put in the work. Now, once again, I'm not saying that you deserve to be forgiven. I'm saying that there is some of you out there that need to ask yourself, was this relationship safe before this happened? Because I've seen too many situations where the relationship was abusive, at least emotionally or psychologically. They called you names. They demeaned you. They consistently invalidated you. You never felt safe. And even though that never justifies cheating, it happened. And now your partner is using that to continue the abuse that feels even more justified in their mind. And if that's you, I just need you to speak to someone professionally about that, because you can take full accountability for your cheating and not blame your partner for it, but also realize that this was a really unsafe, unhealthy dynamic. And cheating was like throwing a match on a bunch of gunpowder, but that doesn't mean you deserve to be abused and beat up for it emotionally over and over again. Sometimes the healthiest thing that you can do is realize your partner isn't trying to heal with you. They don't have an interest in moving towards repair and forgiveness and a better relationship. They just want to hold it over your head, because that's what abusive people do. And the best thing that you can do is forgive yourself and move on. And hopefully you can find someone professionally to help you navigate that. At the end of the day, the goal is to slowly but surely create new agreements together, new rituals of connection, new habits around communication and conflict resolution, new levels of honesty and vulnerability that you'd never experienced before, a new climate of safety and trust and emotional responsiveness, new ways that we fill each other's emotional bank accounts through consistently showing up for each other. A new foundation is formed. And it's from that place that we build something even better than before, where the betrayal doesn't define us anymore. And I just hope I can help you get to that place. Thank you so much for listening. Know that I'm pulling for you and praying for you, and I'll see you in the next one.